Hello, welcome to Real Talk. I am your host, Paul Britton, and we are here to review movies. I did it. I went and saw 4 movies in the theater this weekend. And yeah, I've got a lot to say. So, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. The first movie I saw was Masters of the Universe. It was by far the biggest release of the movies that I saw. And look, my history with Masters of the Universe and He-Man and that sort of thing is that I absolutely played with the He-Man toys when I was a kid. Just probably my first toy obsession was Star Wars toys, and that was it for a very long time. And then Masters of the Universe came out, and I was like, "Oh, I'm all in." And around the same time, Transformers and GoBots started coming out. I'm like, "Oh, I'm really all in on these two." And that was, those were my primary toys forever and ever and ever and ever. And but I did love me some Ram Man, and I did love me some Fisto. And there was a Ninja Chop guy that was the counterbalance to Fisto. Fisto and the Ninja Chop guy were my two favorites because for Fisto, you would pull his hand back and it would have a spring action that went like this. And then for Ninja Chop guy, I don't remember his name, you would hold his hand up and then it would chop down like that and automatically spring action. And I love that. Look, I had a Castle Grayskull. I had the Skeletor Snake Mountain thing. I had it all and I loved it. And I watched the cartoons, and I went and saw the terrible Dolph Lundgren movie, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm out because it just was terrible. And so the idea that somebody was like, you know what, let's do this again, but let's try to, put a little bit of effort into it. And this is directed by Travis Knight, who his directorial the 3 movies major movies he's directed are Kubo and the Two Strings, which was my favorite movie in the year that it came out and is to this day, in my top 20 of all time. uh, uh Not Beetlejuice, Bumblebee, which was the Transformers movie that was actually pretty good. Like, so he has demonstrated, hey, I know how to make a movie about 80s 80s toys. And now he's made Masters of the Universe. And it's like, based on the prior two, you had reason to look forward to seeing this. This is not the type of thing where it's like, eesh, this is going to be bad. Like when the Dolph Lundgren He-Man movie came out, the Dolph Lundgren Masters of the Universe came out, it was 100% eesh, this is going to be bad. And guess what? Eesh, it was really bad. And this movie, the initial trailer seemed a little off, but it was but the problem with the Dolph Lundgren movie is it's just really really super serious. Really, like, okay, this is really important and we're going to put out a Dolph Lundgren movie. Whereas this movie is like, we're going to put out a fun movie that based on a toy that people who are in their 40s and 50s today played with when they were little kids. And we're going to make it fun. And the absolute worst thing that you could say about this movie is, well, it was fun. It's a bad movie, but it was fun. And I don't have a problem with that. Like that, you know what? I'll if you're giving me a Masters of the Universe movie and 1 out of every 5 joke hits, it has jokes, and you give me making fun of the fact that one of the characters is named Fisto. Yeah, you know what? I'm good. Like I happily accept. And I would happily attend that movie and give you my attention. Now, Unfortunately, it asked for 2 hours and 20 minutes of my attention, and so yes, this movie has problems. The number one problem is the runtime. I mean, there's just at the end of the day, you look at 2 hours 20 minutes, and there's not 2 hours and 20 minutes worth of material. Impossible. Like not only is there not 2 hours and 20 minutes worth of material that fill up this movie, I there's no way to remove the 30 minutes that probably need to be removed and then replace it with something that would work better. That's just not going to happen because the Masters of the Universe movie doesn't need to be 2 hours and 20 minutes. Period. End of story. Done. Other thoughts and things to note. Also concerned about the fact that we don't actually see Adam turn into He-Man until about an hour into the movie. So there, right there, yeah, that's guess what? That's where we're trimming. That's where we're cutting some of that off. You're easily knocking out a good 15 to 20 minutes from the front of that from the front of the movie. You're trimming an easy 15 to 20 minutes from the time that Adam first turns into He-Man until he actually confronts Skeletor. There's a big, huge gap there, and it's just like we need to move on. Like we let's get to it, and then we're good. It's just, man, somebody at some point was like, oh, we can't do 2 hours and 20 minutes. At the very least, let's get it to like 159. You know, let's acknowledge that we understand that a 2 hour movie is probably too long for Masters of the Universe. So let's do 159. Like, I need somebody to acknowledge, make that understanding and acknowledgement. And I suppose the counter argument would be, well, but the front is where all the jokes are. It's like, yeah, you know what? You can sprinkle some jokes in throughout and make the front be a little snappier with the jokes. You know, his best friend, I don't know that we ever needed to meet his best friend who believes him when he says that he was from another world, but maybe you don't tell other people that. Like, I don't think we needed to meet him ever. And then to have him come back at the end of the movie, we definitely didn't need that. Like, absolutely nobody from the first 40 minutes of the movie needs to show up in the last 5 minutes of the movie, because nobody cared about anybody from the first hour of the movie. I promise you. All right, what worked when he finally did turn to He-Man? My theater went absolutely nuts. Like, when I tell you, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power, absolutely just made an eruption in my theater. It doesn't, I am not overstating in the slightest. It was an absolute eruption, and deservedly so. It's a super fun and well-earned moment, especially having sat through the first 50 minutes without having to see it or having a chance to see it. Jared Leto really fucking works in Skeletor. I mean, the fun thing with Skeletor is that he was just always so campy and over the top. And Leto really, I'm going to assume that all of his lines were written in this way, but Leto really delivers them and sells them extremely well. And I give him full credit. Unfortunately, but if you look at the box office, Jared Leto's curse on movies seems to continue. The I don't yet to be determined. There's a She-Ra post-credit scene, where you never actually see She-Ra. It's like from the back, and she has her sword, and we see her headdress, and she's in some other world. And like, there's an acknowledgement of, oh well, now that we have the one, should we get them, or should we get them both? And it's something like, there is an acknowledgement that there's another one out there, and it's She-Ra, and we get to see her in the post-credit scene. And yeah, so there was another post-credit scene where, obviously He-Man defeats Skeletor, and Evil Lynn has a moment where she kind of helps Skeletor out, just in case anybody at the end of the movie was concerned that, oh no, we're not going to see Skeletor again, which nobody was. This is what I'm talking about. We don't need that. Like that's a post-credit scene that is completely unnecessary because nobody thinks for a moment that we're not getting Skeletor back. Okay. It's just not, it's not happening. Here at Real to Real Talk, instead of giving out stars, we give movies tacos. And if we feel like it deserves a little bit something extra, we will add guac onto it instead of saying like a half a taco like you would half a star. Why do we add guac? Because nobody eats half a fucking taco. Look, Masters, this is a 2-taco movie that I'm giving 3 tacos because it doesn't deserve guac. And the reality is I would absolutely watch this again with like 20 different people with 20 different viewings because they said, you know what? I haven't seen the Masters of the Universe movie and I kind of want to. And I'd be like, yeah, cool. Let's put it in. I'm in. It's fun. They're the most plain Jane taco. They're Taco Bell tacos. Not you're not telling anybody about how awesome these tacos are. But if somebody said to you, hey, do you want these tacos? You're gonna say, yeah, I fucking want tacos right now. Let's do it. Next movie I saw, we got to still have some boomer porn, and this week's boomer porn is Pressure, because nothing gets boomers excited like a World War II movie, because they had absolutely nothing to do with World War II, but their parents did. So Pressure is the story of a meteorologist with the British Army by the name of James Stagg, Dr. James Stagg, and he is working with Dwight D. Eisenhower and Bernard Montgomery Monty in trying to provide them with a forecast for D-Day, which is supposed to take place on June 5th, 1944. We all know it happened on June 6, 1944. But the conceit of the movie is that they're pushing for June 5th. They're pushing for June 5th. There's another meteorologist, an American, who's, the hotshot guy who, still does it the old way by looking at past historical similar weather patterns and what happened with those similar weather patterns that resulted in what weather we can then look forward to. Whereas, Dr. Stagg is using the new methodology, which is looking at pressure and airspeed velocities and the upper atmosphere and blah, 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 blah. And obviously he's the best one, and obviously he's the one that's going to give you the correct forecast. And so even on a beautiful Saturday when the attack is planned for a Monday, and he's telling you, yeah, it's a beautiful day today, but guess what? These 2 systems are going to come in. And the other guy says, well, there were these 2 systems here 15 years ago and they didn't come in, so now we can't expect them to come in. And it's that, it's that kind of thing. And Dwight and Ike is just having a hard time deciding who to believe. And then he picks the British guy, and it's Sunday morning, and everybody's mad because it's still a beautiful day. But as the morning progresses, like all of a sudden, a storm comes in, and it's a near hurricane. And then he's like, yeah, look, we can't do this for another 2 weeks. But then then it gets really good. Look, none of this is spoilers. I know I'm telling you exactly what happens in the movie, but none of this is spoilers because we know what happens. They go in. They didn't go on June 5th, and that was probably a good idea because, we would hear about it if it was a bad idea. And then they go the next day, even though there's reason to be afraid. Here's my deal, is that the best D-Day movie ever is Saving Private Ryan, and it's because of the invasion scene. And there's an invasion scene here, and it doesn't quite live up to Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan has flaws. The bookend scenes in Saving Private Ryan are egregiously terrible. and I uh I just I I like I like movies about World War II, but I'm really trying to get over war movies. But the reality is that this movie still works. People know how to make these kind of movies work. The problem is, are you going to be able to make it to be exceptional? And this is not an exceptional movie. In addition to the fact that I love Brendan Fraser, and at no moment in my watching of this did I think, oh, Brendan Fraser is Ike. Like every time he pops up on the screen, I have to remind myself that he's Ike. But I was invested. I was 100% invested. I was 100% on board. And yeah, this movie absolutely works. This is exactly what you think it is. And if you think this is the type of movie I would like, guess what? You're going to like this movie. But then if you think this is probably not the kind of movie I'm going to like, guess what? It's probably not the kind of movie you're going to like. Because it's a lot of people, it's a lot of alpha men, making decisions and yelling at each other and being alpha men. There is a solitary woman who tries to be a voice of reason, and she's not given remotely enough to do, but she's, look, she's played by Carrie Condon, who's fucking amazing. And so, her part, her moments are fantastic, but they're not nearly enough. But you're still invested, and these, how to make this movie. And guess what? This movie's almost always going to be 3 tacos. And guess what this movie is? It's 3 tacos. Like, you'd have to do something exceptional to get more than 3 tacos out of me on this movie, and you'd have to do something exceptionally bad to get worse than 3 tacos. So that's where we land on Pressure. The next movie up is Power Ballad. Power Ballad is the movie from the dude who made Once and who also made Sing Street. And this one is starring Paul Rudd as, and this is the worst part of the movie, as Rick Power Ballad, Rick Power, and Nick Jonas as former former boy band member Danny Wilson, who's looking to redefine his career as a soloist, and Paul Rudd, who never got to have a career because he fell in love and got married and has been trying to write songs but just never got anything to get any legs, and is in a wedding band, and happens to be at a wedding with Danny Wilson, and he plays Danny one of the songs that he's working on. And a few months later, Danny steals the song, and Rick Power needs to try to figure out how to get credit for the song. John Carney, the guy who made Once and Sing Street and this, knows how to tell a story about songs. Like, it's a weird power to have, but he knows how to do it. And apparently he doesn't know how to title a movie, because what you don't do is, first of all, you don't name one of your characters Nick Power or Rick Power. Nick Power would have been, that's the only worst name I could think of, is Nick Power. And then second worst is Rick Power. And then you definitely don't take the last name of that character and then slap it on the front of your movie title and call it Power Ballad and be like, winning. You don't do that. That's not what you do. But also, but if you're trying to tell a decent story and get buy-in on characters, this succeeds. If you're also trying to marginalize, again, the wife characters, and this again is what you did, man. I don't. 3 movies in a row, and not a single one of them could possibly pass the Bechdel test, because not a single one of them has a single moment where there are 2 female characters alone on the screen. You put in 2 female characters in this thing, and It's just as good of a movie and maybe better. That's all I'm gonna say. Um, but the movie works, and but it's also super flimsy. Like this. Yes, the first three movies I'm giving 3 tacos, and it's terrible. What happened to the bell curve? Well, the problem is that I would rewatch. This is probably the closest to getting 2 tacos plus guac from me, because the reality is I don't know that if I would ever really particularly care to watch this ever again, which is typically my 2 tacos plus guac. But I do. Paul Rudd is really good in this, and Nick Jonas is fantastic in this, and ultimately it works. All right, the last movie is Tuner, where Dustin Hoffman plays an aging and leaning towards getting closer to retirement Harry Horowitz, who is a piano tuner, and he has a young protege, Nicky White, who has a condition where he's allergic to loud noises, but he has perfect pitch, and so he works with Harry to go around. He basically does all the tuning, and Harry's there to shoot the shit and take naps. And the, what ends up happening is Harry ends up getting ends up in the hospital. Nikki falls in love with a student at a New York prep school, preparatory school, musical preparatory school, basically like a Juilliard type of thing. And and in order to pay for Harry's hospitalization, Nikki ends up getting entwined with a crime crew, because he's able to crack safes because of his super attuned hearing. And the premise is of the 4 movies that we're talking about, the premise here is the most original. Okay, so it's right off the bat, it has the legs to be the best of the 4 movies. Okay. The performances in this one are, like Dustin Hoffman's amazing. Leo Woodall, who plays Nikki, is amazing. And we have Havana Rose Liu, who is just so good in this movie as Ruthie. By the way, the actress Havana, who plays Ruthie, also shows up for a short while in Power Ballad as Nick Jonas's girlfriend. But neither here nor there. They actually give Ruthie things to do. Thumbs up. I really enjoyed this one. Like this was just the best movie of all the 3 that, and it's really interesting, because when you see 4 movies in a weekend, and you really like all 4, like you genuinely enjoy yourself going to 4 movies, but one of them is clearly like, yeah, you know what, there's something more to this one, and Tuner is the one that there's something more, and it's like and it ends up being a bit of a heist movie, but also quite a bit of a character study in understanding, and the obvious stuff. Look, there are super obvious things that happen in this movie. Obviously, Nikki goes too far. Obviously, he gets in too deep. Obviously, he tries to get out, but they're not going to let him out. Obviously, being entwined with criminal figures costs him dearly. Obviously, one of his heists ends up coming to bite him in the ass severely, particularly with his the woman who he's fallen in love with. And then there's an ending, and the ending it really works. The ending really works. This one's get 4 tacos. Like I would recommend this one to anybody, just to anybody. This just a really good movie. That's it for real to real talk. We got Steven Spielberg releasing a movie next weekend, so if you don't come back next weekend for Steven Spielberg, what are you doing? just go see the movie so you're prepared. Do some homework.